All right. Do you want to go ahead and are you ready to get started?
I think so.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for logging on once again. My name is Cheryl Youngberg. I'm one of the counselors here. And we have Kelly Falcone, who's also going to be presenting alongside me. And we have Becky Bellini, who is going to be monitoring our Q&A. So the recording, thank you. I'm getting to all of those housekeeping items. I'm just going to, let me see here. There we go. So tonight, yes, we are recording this presentation and it will be available on our website shortly after. Also, it will be posted to our counseling YouTube page as well, so it can be accessed there. And usually we do also include the slide deck. I believe that we have already sent the slide deck out to your seniors based on what we did present on Monday and Tuesday. So they should be able to they have a copy of that as well. So you could certainly reference the slide deck and you can reference the recording of this presentation. All right. And again, the Q&A, we're going to be going over a lot of information tonight. As you can see, the agenda, we will be talking about post-secondary options, the college application process, the resources and tools we use, including school links and making sure that you kind of see what the students are going to be doing on their end with school links and other resources as well. All right, so there's a lot to kind of go over this evening. Becky will be on the Q&A. However, like I said, there's a good chance that we'll be answering your question throughout this presentation tonight. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and get started. As I said, we are talking about the post-secondary options with the presentation that we did with our seniors earlier this week. It was geared towards those who are applying directly to a four-year after high school, and that's just because that's the current season that we're in. We do definitely help with all other post-secondary options, but it just happened to be, this is the one that we're starting in with this season. It starts pretty quickly for applying to those four-year colleges. So we did focus on that in the presentation for our seniors. However, we kind of want to go over with parents and families the many other wonderful options for students who after they graduate from high school. And the first one is community college. We're a huge proponent of this. We get a huge percentage of our students who start at a community college as their first choice, and many who have thrived and have done very well and have chosen to transfer, or that maybe they've taken on a certificate program and have been able to go directly into a career. But lots of great opportunities at the community college. We happen to have two in our backyard that are very, very good, both Diablo Valley College, DVC, which their main campus is in Pleasant Hill, and they also have a smaller campus in San Ramon, which is very convenient for our kids. And then of course there's Las Positas, which is in Livermore. So many nearby community colleges in the Bay Area that serve our students well and offer both associate's degrees and certificates. This application season starts in the spring semester for our students. So come in early February, typically we do have DVC and Las Positas come and visit and kind of go over the application process, answer any questions, things like that. So lots of great opportunities at the community college, whether it be, choosing a certificate or a degree, going on, taking one of their transfer pathways. All of those things are great options. So as I talk a little bit more about it, I think we're going to go on to the next page here. All right, so as we talked about starting at the community college, there are great transfer opportunities for students who start there. So typically what it amounts to for the most part is 2 years starting at a community college. Really the number that we're looking at there is for students to meet 60 units to be able to do a transfer application to be able to go to that four-year college. So students do apply at the beginning of their second year. For UC, a lot of that process may start even earlier in the spring of their first year, but the goal is to transfer to a four-year college as a third-year student. And definitely they provide a very clear path for students on how to do this, helping them with the courses they need to take, taking care of those general ed prerequisites, requirements, and then of course some major prerequisites as well. and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about it. So for the UC and the CSU transfer, we have what's called the UC Transfer Agreement Guarantee. You may have heard this as the TAG for the UC, and that guarantees admission to one of the 6 eligible UC campuses who participate. So not all the UCs participate in the transfer agreement guarantee, but that doesn't mean that students cannot apply to those UCs. They can still apply for transfer to those UCs, but there's 6 eligible UC campuses that actually participate in the TAG. Let's see. And then, of course, there is also the CSU. They also have an associate's degree for transfer, which guarantees admission to the CSU system. Same kind of process. However, that is open to all 23 CSU campuses. So that's a great option as well for our students. And that does start for students in the fall of their 2nd year at community college. So on to the next. This is just kind of hot off the press. We just got this recently and want to share it with you guys. If you would like more information on what DVC has to offer, they are offering an event in October for high school students and their families. There is a QR code for you to be able to register for that, but it is a great chance to kind of see what programs that they offer, what associate's degree, technical certificates, and other types of programs that they have for students. So, learn why DVC has the #1 transfer rate to UC Berkeley. That is definitely true of theirs, but they send a lot of schools to both our UC and CSU system. All right, and that one is going to be located in San Ramon. Another option for post-secondary that is very important to mention are the technical programs out there. So these are programs that are very specific for a student to go into and eventually get a job very much in that area. So it's a very specific certificate type program. As you can see there's culinary arts, cosmetology is a great option. There's a lot of different jobs in health and allied health for students as well. Automotive engineering. These areas are just growing very rapidly. The percentage just keeps going higher. I think a lot of students who are finding, and a lot of just kind of understanding how the job market works and the amount of money that is spent at colleges, a lot of these technical programs students are going into and are able to get into placements for jobs and earning a great wage. So a great option for a lot of our students consider those technical programs, which also a lot of these programs exist at the community college as well, but there are some that are very specific schools. Trades and apprenticeships. This is another thing where we're just seeing so much growth, just a very high percentage of job placement. Many areas that students can look into here, whether it be in plumbing, electrical, even computer science. There's areas in there, construction, energy, as you can see. Apprenticeship.gov is a great place to start and kind of look at it. It's definitely, again, increasing in the Bay Area. And I think a lot of kids don't realize, just the opportunity for growth in these areas and just the opportunity to be able to get into a job fairly quickly and earn a very, very good wage and salary. So that continues to be something that's growing for a lot of our students and for young adults. So one of the things that we want to make sure that students also research as you're researching for your colleges, as you're researching community colleges, definitely take a look at these opportunities as well. All right, and then there's, we have a lot of students who enter the military right out of high school, which is great. We do have our military branches, the Marines, the Air Force, Navy, and Army. They do visit our campus throughout the school year. We already have their fall visits on our calendar, so you can kind of see there when the Marines comes here October 1st, Air Force comes October 22nd, Navy September 17th, and the Army on October 22nd. So they are on our campus and more than willing to talk to your students who have an interest in this area. So another thing to consider as well as a post-grad option for our students. All right. So, and then of course, there are the four-year colleges and universities. We do have a good percentage of students who start here and apply to four-year colleges. Again, like I had mentioned, right now, that's kind of with the season that we're in. This is where we're really starting to have our seniors work on these college applications. And this is kind of the bulk of what we talk to them about on Monday and Tuesday. So, we have our wonderful CSU and UC option. We have great public schools out of state. We have great private schools in our state as well. Definitely some great options there. I have also, let's see, the UC and CSU, just so you do know, they have the A to G requirements, which I think we talk a lot about it with our students. Hopefully they're very familiar with it at this point. So they do make sure that students are meeting that A to G requirement. And then the test blind admissions means that they do not consider the SAT or ACT when evaluating admission. So they do not count that. It's not something that's required. So for a lot of our seniors who know that they are only applying to UCs and CSUs, they do not have to worry about taking the SAT or the ACT. Lots of other schools, such as out-of-state schools and some private schools, many of them may be test optional still. And there are a few colleges here and there that are starting to bring back the testing requirement. But I do think that the vast majority of them right now are still test optional. Okay. So we'll go dive a little bit more deeper into colleges and four-year colleges and the application process for this. You may have heard of the many different deadlines that are offered for our seniors as they are applying. Regular is the standard one that is most common. Typically, these are right around the beginning of the new year, right around January 1st, sometimes very, very early into the spring, that deadline is. Then there's early action. Usually this deadline is right around November 1st, anywhere November 1st to 15th. We do have a few schools out there that have an even earlier one, like October 15th. But this is an opportunity for students to be able to get early results, but not necessarily are required to commit right away. They can still make that decision and by May 1st, but they can submit early and they get an answer early, which is kind of nice. So we do have a good number of students who pick some colleges that they're going to apply to early action. And sometimes that determines what schools they're going to apply to for regular decision. All right. Then, of course, there's the early decision one. This is the one where students are allowed to apply to one school for early decision because it's binding. Essentially, I always tell our kids that this should probably be your one dream school where like if I get into this school, I don't care about my other applications. I'm essentially withdrawing them and I am going to commit and attend whatever that dream school of yours is. That is what early decision means. It is binding. The expectation is that students will attend the school if they are admitted to it. I always tell students to definitely just make sure that you're having those conversations at home, talking with your parent or guardian, because you want to make sure that you're making a thoughtful decision about where you might want to do this, but also talk about all the other pieces of things that are important too, such as the financial aid piece and all of those. That needs to be considered as well. All right. And then the rolling one, those are the ones where colleges evaluate as the applications come in. The decisions come out usually a few weeks after you've applied for these colleges. So that's kind of nice for a lot of students. It's definitely a benefit to applying early to these because, like I said, applications are evaluated as they come in and being able to hear back within a few weeks is a great option. All right. So those are the typical 4 ones that you're going to see.
Yeah. And just to stress, most students don't apply anywhere early decision. That's like a very small part of our senior class that have that school in mind where it's like that would just make it so I don't even care about hearing back from any other college. So just throwing that out there.
Absolutely. That's very true. All right. So as your seniors are creating their final lists, there are going to be a few different application systems that they might be using. most of our students do end up applying to the UC and to the CSU. Each of those, the CSU system has their own application system called Cal State Apply. The UC has their UC application system. All of the sites, all the CUCs and CSU work within those application systems. So you will have the ability to go through one site to apply to the different UCs that you'd like to apply to. All right, there is also the Common App. This is roughly, I don't know, gosh, probably over 2,000 schools that participate in the Common Application. This is just another application system that is often used by our students and all seniors who are applying to colleges. And it's for private schools, many of our out-of-state schools that do use it. And that's kind of nice too, because then it's one system. If you're applying to UCs, you've got your one app, you've got your one app for CSU, but then on Common App also it's your other system that you would use to apply to certain out-of-state schools and private schools. Community colleges, if you're applying to a college in California, we use CCC Apply, California Community Colleges. And then there's the other option where a lot of colleges you will see that you're applying to have their own direct to institution application. I'm just going to try and, ooh, where did I go? Sorry about that. I am trying to view the presentation. There we go. All right. Okay, creating a college list. So we talk a lot about this with our students. We do start this conversation fairly early with them in their junior year so that they can just, as they're starting to explore and as they're starting to look at colleges that interest them, how to favorite them and like them. But then when it comes down to creating your final list, you will see here that our recommendation for the most part, and truly feel that 8 to 12 is a healthy and realistic range for students to apply to. We have definitely noticed a lot of students, a lot of seniors across the board who are starting to apply to 20 plus schools. And that's something that we really emphasize to our students, that there's a lot of different pros and cons to being able to do that. We want students to be able to think deeply about what they want out of a college experience. And sometimes when you have those 20 plus schools, it can create more stress than necessary for our students. So, we do encourage a more refined list. And a lot of times when I meet with my kids who have applied to 20 plus schools, I do ask questions, and I want to make sure that they're asking themselves the right questions to make sure that they are not overdoing it. What we hear from a lot of kids, I think, is that sometimes when you do have so many different choices and different things, your application can suffer in that sense. So if we go to the next slide, I'll kind of go over some of the things that we do want to talk about. When we talk about more is not more, is basically more is not necessarily better. Each one of those applications, even though you might just be using 3 different application systems, it takes time. It can lower the quality of each of your applications. When you are able to choose a more refined list, say like our recommendation of maximum of 15 colleges, like we said, attention to detail is key. You want to be able to have polished essays that demonstrate real interest to that specific university. You don't necessarily want to apply everywhere just because. And, another thing that we really want students to be aware of is the amount of wait lists that are out there. And I think a lot of that is because of the number of applications that colleges are getting, which is hard, because I think that adds even more stress for our students. So students who are on a wait list, it just kind of prolongs this entire process where they may not know where they're going to school until they're into the summer. And that can be hard. I feel like a lot of students, they think about that, and then we understand with a lot of the UCs and CSUs how the wait list is just getting bigger and longer, and the wait is just even more for our kids. So make sure that you're thinking very deeply about where you want to focus and what you want your college experience to be like. So whether you want to go to a big school where there's sports that you can support, and you don't mind being in a big lecture hall, or maybe you want more of an intimate setting where you really do get to know your professors. The classes are a lot smaller, things like that. So you want to make sure that you're making that effort now into creating a good college list. So we have lots more to talk about that one too, which I'm sure we'll kind of get into it as we talk about other stuff. But the next thing I just wanted to point you guys out to as we start talking about resources is the senior guidebook. So everything that we talk about here and everything that, hopefully your students may need, you will see that you'll be able to find it in our senior guidebook if you go to our Cal High counseling website. That can be accessed directly through the Cal High website, or you can always Google Cal High counseling and it should come up for you pretty quickly. But we do get a lot of students who may not know some of the little details that they're going to want to ask, that they're going to ask in their application, such as what's my SSID? What even is that? And we kind of help them. That's on their transcript. We let them know what is our school code, how many students are in their graduating class. Those are the types of things that a lot of times those are general questions that the applications want to know. And this is where you can find it. So our senior guidebook, I encourage, and we tell all of our seniors to bookmark it, because you will be referencing it often. And more often than not, the answer to your question is going to be in there. So make sure you bookmark it. I'm going to turn it over to Kelly so she can talk a little bit about our great new program, School Links.
Excellent. Thanks, Cheryl. Yeah. So if this is not your first senior, you might be like, wait, what happened in Naviance? This is very similar in functionality. However, we're already getting the feedback that our students find it much easier to navigate. So that's always my favorite thing to hear. So you actually have accounts as guardians that are automatically created for you. It's just a matter of you knowing how to get to it. So we use the email that's listed in Infinite Campus that you chose to have an Infinite Campus. If it's a Gmail, you'll hit sign up with Gmail. If it's not a Gmail, you'll just hit forgot password and claim it like you would with a usual kind of forgot password order of events. But regardless, just showing you a little bit what it looks like in case you haven't been on already. When you log in, you would first see the dashboard. I find my students is probably going to be a lot more what you're wanting to see. So right here, you have the view of your students' to-dos. And if you have multiple students in 8th through 12th grade, you would pick which student you're wanting to look at and go from there. But so seeing, hey, what's already been completed, what do they have upcoming, and poking around a little bit that way. So I highly encourage you to log on if you haven't. So getting a bit more into it. This part of School Links is specifically for students, but I'm just wanting you to see other resources and things that are there. So this is kind of like the exploration part of it, which is under the Explore button. So the assessments, there's a variety of different short surveys that your students can take. They only take a few minutes, and they can learn more about themselves, learn more about their strengths, what careers might be a good fit. I really recommended our seniors to do the lifestyle one if you are thinking about a college campus at all. It tells you kind of what things you might want to be looking for to help find a good match college for your students. So lots of options there. And then as well in the Learning Hub, they can dig deeper into some different topics, right? So things that we as counselors wish we could get into all classrooms and talk about all of these things, but unfortunately I would need a couple clones to be able to do that. So we have this to help us out. So different career clusters to explore for students thinking about other options. I'm really curious. I want to spend some time looking at whatever that international job market is. I think that sounds really interesting. So these are available to your students at any time to come and look at. School Search, this is available in both Guardian accounts and student accounts, and what it sounds like. It's a School Search. This applies to two-year colleges, four-year colleges, trade schools, right? Any post-secondary option students can look for, and lots of different filters that you can use to search for what kinds of things are important to your student. So making different lists. They might have started this in the spring when it was introduced to them, but if not, they're really getting into that now to see what options they might be considering for after graduation. And one thing I really appreciate about it is the amount of information that's there, and a lot of the colleges have some like virtual tours and things too to really be able to picture what that would look like. Okay, so within that, one of the features that's really helpful, you might be able to see it. I'm gonna go back for a second. Um, it's really small on here, but there is the scattergram button, which I kind of zoomed in on in that little screenshot that you could see. And this is taking our application history, not only from Cal High, but also district-wide to look at data about our past student applications. So when all of our seniors are graduating, we do a senior survey with them and they tell us a little bit about how the outcomes of their college applications, and that's how we generate this data. So it is a great starting point for research. I do encourage everyone to remember this is a general guideline, right? This is just looking at a couple numbers. It's not taking things into account like what major was applied for, or for schools that take extracurriculars or other factors into account, right? There's nothing that's robust enough to be able to do that, but this is kind of a good general guideline. For test optional as well, this is only looking at GPAs, so it takes out that test score factor. And then you can see there's the toggle between school data and district data. So lots and lots of data points to look at to help guide you. And when your students are putting their final lists together, SchoolLinks has this information and your students' current GPA. And it actually says, hey, based on this, we think it's probably into likely match reach, and it helps your student see if their list is balanced. So it doesn't do it automatically for them. It gives them a suggestion most of the time, and then your student can choose whether or not to accept that suggestion or alter it slightly. Another thing, so this again is back to a student feature in SchoolLinks, but I'm wanting to make sure you all are aware of it so you can encourage your students to attend these. We have rep visits that happen. These are people from the college coming to Cal High, often in person, sometimes virtually, to talk to our students about what their programs have to offer, as well as answer the students' questions, right? Getting to ask someone from that representative something that you might not find on the internet or you want to hear it firsthand. One of my favorite things about this, though, is that the person who is interacting with us is most often the person who will be reading the recommendations from our area. So getting to really get their insight on how to stand out in an application, but also feel out if their campus is somewhere you'd want to go. So that's a win-win on both ends. Some schools also even track what they call demonstrated interest, which means they take into account when they're making an admissions decision, does the student seem like they want to come here? And this would be one way to show, yes, I'm actively pursuing a relationship with this college. So over 40 this year. Many of them happen during student support, some are during lunch or after school. So great way to get some more information and meet some college admissions officials firsthand. All right, this is a new feature that I'm very excited about with SchoolLinks. And again, this is both for guardians and for students, which is the scholarship matching feature. So in SchoolLinks, your students can create a scholarship profile that is basically just telling the platform information about you as an individual. So it can be eligibility criteria like, hey, I am a female in San Ramon, and this is my GPA, right? Here's my citizenship status, right? It can sort by that if you have various needs there. It can look at different interests. I am a professional yodeler or something. I have seen a scholarship for that. That sounds random, but it is true. And then um, by major, by life circumstances, right? So lots of different things out there for more characteristics than you could even imagine. And then lastly, it can look by college. So scholarships that could be pertaining to students that are going to study in certain places or are hoping to study in certain places. So once your student has created that in their account, you'll be able to see what scholarships they're matched for, or you can just look at the database as a whole. If you'll notice too, there's also a way to search by district posted. So as we get scholarships that are tailored to our students in the district or local scholarships, we will add them there as well. So you can go ahead and keep an eye on that. All right, so some key tasks in schooling. Sorry, the sun is really getting in my eyes. Key tasks in schooling for students. So updating their final list in the college application section. So we showed them how to do this in the presentations where we saw them on Monday and Tuesday. If anybody needs help with that, please come in and see the counselor. But that is how we know where transcripts need to be sent, how we can help make sure that you get the information you need. This includes community colleges and trade schools. So really making sure that that section is filled out. Um, I like free money. I think you probably like free money too. So we definitely want everybody to have that scholarship match profile done. And then if applicable, and we'll get into this more in a little bit, they would add their teacher letter of recommendation request here. They would complete their brag sheet, which helps your counselor know all the amazing things that you've done to brag on you. And then really importantly, if applicable, if you're applying to Common App schools, you would need to match your Common App or we won't be able to send documents on your behalf. So we've gone all over all of this in more detail with your students. We just want you all to have a high level overview of what they need to do. So we did talk about signing the FERPA waiver, and you might be wondering the FERPA waiver is basically saying that you are waiving your right to read your letter of recommendations. And why that's so important is it gives your recommendations weight. Without that, the colleges know or don't know that they can trust what's written because the student had a right to see it. So we're going to brag on you. Your teachers are going to brag on you. Let us make sure that's meaningful, and the only way to do that is waiving the right to read them. So in some cases, we won't even be able to send documents until this has been completed. So it's another step, but if you're wondering what that is, that's a brief explanation of that. And I'll turn it back to Ms. Youngberg because I know I saw lots of questions in your registration about letters recommendation. So that way you can know what we already have told your students.
Yes, so this is definitely something that we focused on as well in our presentations with your seniors, and just kind of doing an overview of what will need to happen if they are applying to colleges that require a letter of recommendation. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at this little chart here. This kind of is helpful so that students do understand who does require one and who doesn't. So the UC and the CSU system do not accept letters of recommendation from teachers or counselors, and they are not used during the evaluation. So again, if you know that you're only applying, say, for example, to UCs, CSUs, and maybe some community colleges in the spring, you do not have to worry about asking for a letter of recommendation from your counselor or any teachers. All right, there are private schools that may require, like we said there, it's probably most likely a case where they may require a teacher letter, a counselor rec. Sometimes they may require a minimum of 2 teachers plus your counselor. So definitely that's a situation where we would help and support your student, and I'll kind of go over the process for asking for one and making sure that they can get that set up. All right, a lot of out-of-state schools, they may also require a letter. It is just dependent on each institution. So once you have created that final list and you know what colleges that you're definitely applying to, it would be good to look at those individual requirements, because there may be some schools that are very specific as far as what they want, and there are others where maybe a teacher letter is optional even. So look at those individual colleges that you plan to apply to. All right, and then like I said earlier, community colleges do not require one. The military academy is a yes. Those start pretty early, and there's many different steps to that one, including, an endorsement from your state senators, things like that. So those are important ones to make sure that you are on track and meeting the necessary timelines for it. And joining the military, you do not require a letter of recommendation. So one thing on the bottom there that we do highlight, because all of us are writing our letters in our own time, and especially our teachers that are writing it in their own time outside of the school day, we do ask that you don't ask for letters as a just in case. It's important that you know for sure what your final list is going to be, and that you've looked up what those colleges require, and that if they do need a college letter of rec, that's when you do ask for one. All right. Okay, so going over a little bit more of the details. So for counselors, the way that we know if your senior requires a letter of recommendation is by them completing out the post-grad plan survey. We emphasized this in our presentation with them a few days ago. The post-grad plan survey is located in the to-dos on School Links, and we do have a deadline of September 19th. And we know that's early. However, we do have a lot of students who are applying early action and have deadlines as early as October 15th. So in order for us to be able to set up individual meetings with those students who require a letter of recommendation, we do need to be able to see that you've completed the post-grad plan survey and have that done by September 19th so that we can reach out and set up those individual meetings, because that's the only way we know that you do need one. All right, so for letters of recommendation, you do not need to add us in School Links as a recommender. It's kind of one where we already have access and we take care of that. But we do ask that like I said, you update that list in your college application manager after you've done your post-grad plan survey. You complete the student brag sheet, so that just kind of helps us get to know you better about all the great things that you've been doing outside of school and your extracurriculars. We have the guardian questions there as well. That's kind of highlighted there. It's optional. However, I will say I pull a lot of great information from you parents. I think that, parents do a great job of bragging about their senior and mentioning all the cool things that they've done and giving us some personal insight on where they feel their kids' strengths are. And that is super helpful. And I tend to look at it and use a lot of the material that's put in there. So we encourage students and guardians to fill out the questions, but it is not required. All right, and then of course we want to make sure that you match your Common App, which also includes making sure that you've taken care of the FERPA so that we can send documents on your behalf. All right, so I may have a lot of students who do fill out the post-grad plan survey, but they may not have a deadline until January 1st. And they may be wondering why, oh gosh, I thought I filled it out early and I haven't had a meeting set up yet. But that's just because we do prioritize students with the earliest deadlines. So we do prioritize if a student might have an October 15th deadline, if they have a November 1st deadline, December 1st, we kind of go from there. So we definitely will meet with your student individually for those who need a letter of recommendation, but we do prioritize based on deadlines. So we ask that you also complete that in the post-grad plan survey so we know when your earliest deadline is. All right. Now, so for teachers, letters of rec, you will find when you're applying to a lot of different schools, they will ask for a letter of recommendation from a teacher, sometimes more than one. And sometimes they will say at least one and up to three if you would like to. So it's all, again, different per the university. And a lot of kids wonder, like, well, how do I even start with that? We obviously want you to talk to one of your teachers that you've had recently and who knows you well. And teaching a core subject is also a good thing to think about. So teachers that have taught you in subjects such as English, math, science, history, and such is a good option to consider. And many of those teachers happen to be in the junior year, since they're students that they have had recently, and hopefully you've built a good relationship with that teacher. So we always tell students that make sure that you know exactly what the colleges are asking for. Some colleges, based on the majors that you're applying to, may ask specific letters from specific areas. So you may have a student who is applying to biological sciences, and that particular major at that university, they definitely want to hear from a science teacher, or they may want to hear from a math or science teacher, but definitely make sure that you're looking at those individual requirements from the colleges, specifically for those who are applying to majors that may want to see a letter from a teacher in that subject area. So keep that in mind as well. Obviously, a teacher that can highlight your various strengths. This may not be the teacher either where you just kind of breezed through and got an easy A and it was, you excelled in the class. it really should be a teacher who knows you well, who you've been able to build a good relationship with, because what they're going to be writing about is their experience with that student in the classroom. So they're going to be talking about the observations they have as far as, how well they worked, if they participated, how they performed, obviously, were they helpful to their peers? Did they get along with others? Those are the types of things that, they're going to be highlighting in that letter. So definitely one where you want to make sure that you have a good rapport with that teacher. And then, be aware as well that that teacher may want you to complete an additional questionnaire that'll help them write a letter. So I always tell students to make sure that, they go there with all the information that they need, and then to make sure that they're providing any additional information that the teacher may need to be able to write a good letter on their behalf. So when we go to the next page, it'll kind of tell you, it summarizes a little bit of the process. So for the counselor rec process, remember putting that request by sharing with us that you do need a letter of rec in the post-grad plan survey, and completing that counselor rec checklist that I talked about a couple of slides ago. For the teacher rec process, we do tell students, don't email and ask your teachers, don't assume and automatically add them on school links, thinking that they will just do it if you assign them to it. You really should be asking them to write a letter of rec for you in person. All right, have that conversation with them in person. Like I said, have your ducks in a row, know where you're going to need those letters to be sent to, be able to answer any questions that they might have, know your deadline so that they are aware of what they're working with as well. And once they do agree to it, after you've talked to them in person, then you will going to go onto school links, and you're going to make sure that you add them to each application that you want them to send a letter to. So you may have 3 different teachers that are sending a letter on your behalf, because there might be a certain college that requires 3, but then there might be a certain college that only wants 1 and will not accept more than that. So that's where in school links you're going to be able to be very clear as far as which teacher is assigned to send a letter to which school. And you'll do that, you'll be able to see where that process is in school links. And we've shared that with your students as well. And then, of course, like I had mentioned before, teachers may ask for some additional information from you just so that it can help them write a good personalized letter for students. And lastly, we always tell kids, one of the best parts of all of our jobs is hearing where, you end up deciding to go or where you've been admitted. We like to celebrate right alongside with you. So it's important that you, one, thank those teachers and counselors with a simple thank you note for writing a letter of rec on your behalf. And then, of course, keep us updated on as those decisions do come in, because we want to support you in any way and we want to celebrate right alongside you. So just a few things in that to make sure that we have all of those things in place so that we can write a good letter for you. All right, now I am going to pass it on back to Ms. Falcone to go over financial aid and some other fun stuff.
Yeah, super important topic. So I'm gonna jump to the bottom here. We do have a financial aid night in January. So for next year, this year, I don't know what to call it. It'll be January 12th of 2026. We bring in a financial aid professional. We're happy to help with the process, but to give you all the nuts and bolts, we bring in someone else for that. So the FAFSA or the CATA is expected to open on October 1st this year. So back up to the usual deadline. If you had someone graduate the last year or 2, it was a bit later while they made some changes to the application, but it is expected to open back in October. So just a couple weeks. FAFSA is for students who do have a Social Security number. The California Dream Act application, or CATA, is for students who do not. But everyone, per the Assembly Bill 469, all seniors would complete one or the other, or they would complete an opt-out form. So we highly encourage having this on file for a variety of reasons, but one of which, financial aid is available for many options after graduation. So just kind of covering that base. Additionally, even if you are fairly confident that you're not going to qualify for aid for your student, there are colleges out there, scholarships out there that won't consider students for merit-based aid unless they have these applications done. And the reason for that being, they want to be sure that your student can't get any money from the government before giving you the money from their college or their scholarship foundation. So that's really one of the reasons why it's necessary to have this done. Another thing is for any community college students, regardless of family income, having the FAFSA or the CATA done will help you qualify for the FT3, which is first time, full-time free tuition. So the California community colleges financially make a whole lot of sense for the reason of this FT3. Scholarships do have rolling deadlines, right? There are scholarships due every month of the year. Many of them do kind of pick up in the spring a little bit because a lot of the people reviewing scholarships know that seniors are quite busy right now getting their applications ready to send in, but there are still some due. And the students that we found have the most luck with scholarships, it isn't really luck. It's being consistent is the key to it and applying to many scholarships. For that reason, we do tend to like Going Merry, which has been around for several years now. They call themselves the Common App of Scholarships. The reason for that being they're trying to save your students a bit of work, and they group scholarships together by kind of the aspects of the student and being able to maybe reuse some application material. So if a scholarship is really focused on community service and your student needs to write an essay about how they've given back to their community, Going Merry is going to say, hey, you can maybe use that essay for all of these applications. So that's certainly worth looking into. SchoolLinks does have the search feature that I was talking about early, and we're going to work on getting our local and regional awards on there. And then just a little pro tip, check with your work, right? A lot of companies might have some opportunities for scholarships for students, so that's always worth looking into. Don't want to leave any stone unturned when it comes to financial aid. Other things coming up next month, we do have our annual college and career fair. This year it is at San Ramon Valley. Lots of different career programs, military branches, trade programs represented here, colleges and universities as well. So it's a huge fair. All 4 schools in the district come to it together. So the reps really do like to come. They get to talk to a lot of people in one night. So we have a large turnout. So it's a really great to start exploring possibilities, continue those conversations with people. And again, like I was talking about earlier, getting to meet the person who is likely reviewing our applications. Okay, so shifting gears a bit more into next steps. So thinking about what is the student's responsibility, what's the school's responsibility? So obviously the students are doing their college applications, right? That is firmly on their shoulders. So requesting and sending any transcripts from outside institutions, right? Putting their colleges into SchoolLinks is how they're requesting transcripts from Cal High, but if they have taken any classes elsewhere, they would need to request those outside transcripts. If their college is requiring transcripts for them, right? The UCs and CSUs, they don't require transcripts basically usually until a student is enrolling there. They're going off the grades the students are reporting themselves. So save yourself some money and you don't need to send it to them right away. But if a college is asking for it, the student would need to take care of sending that outside transcript. Completing the letter of recommendation request process, whether they need a counselor letter, teacher letter, or both, that would be on them to follow the steps that Cheryl talked about earlier. SAT and ACT scores. If a student is applying test optional or to a school that requires tests and they would like to send scores, they need to work directly with either College Board or ACT.org to get those sent over. That's not something that we have on our transcripts or that we can send on a student's behalf. Importantly, notifying us of any changes. So we're going to go off of that post-grad plan survey. If anything happens after September 19th, where it's earlier or later, please let us know. Right? Obviously, if it's earlier, we need to know so we can meet your deadlines. And if it's later, it really helps us spread out our workload as evenly as possible so we can give the most possible attention to each individual student. So please do let us know that. And then once it comes to be January, we'll work on mid-year or final reports. So just that's more for later now. Everything else is kind of up and coming, and then that one you have a little time before you get started on that. On the right, there are things the school will take care of. So some people will see something called a secondary school report, and they're like, I don't know what that is. How do I send it? We will take care of that as long as you have your college list updated. We'll get that settled. The school profile, that tells colleges about our school, the opportunities that students have, as well as some of our policies. So that does accompany students' transcripts to many colleges they apply to. And then, of course, we will work on our counselor letters. We love meeting with your students, and I look forward to this time of year every year. So that I think covers all that was there. Okay, next steps for students. What do they have on their plate? So we've talked about the post-grad plan survey quite a bit. If they do need a letter of rec, they would need to complete the tasks on the checklist. I just want to be very clear. The post-grad plan survey is for every single senior. That's them telling us what they're thinking, what they need from us. We added a new question this year, basically having them try to gauge how much help they're wanting, so that way we can do a little triage there. It's also asking them about what types of workshops they would like us to hold. We're very excited about the responsive scheduler this year and being able to host workshops more easily during that time to manage student signups and get everybody where they need to be. So please encourage them. If there's something you're wanting to learn more about, have your student ask for it. Bookmarking the senior guides, their handy dandy notebook this time of year, so doing that. Updating the college application manager, that is the only way we're going to know what schools they're applying to, what needs to be sent, and their deadlines. So that needs to be updated. Attending college reps and workshops, I've kind of already talked about both of those, and then the financial aid night in January. This one is in bold. The check your email every day. And I can't stress that enough, because with a school of 700 plus seniors, almost 3,000 students, email is one of the most efficient, only efficient ways to communicate in mass. So we really need them to be checking, because we give out important information that way. The other part of it, though, is that's how their colleges are going to be communicating with them, right? If they thought their application was done, but they had some missing item, they'll be emailed about it. And if they miss the deadline, I've had communications with colleges where I've called them before, hey, the student, didn't see this. Is there anything we can do? And it's like, sorry, the application won't be able to be reviewed. So missing deadlines, it gets pretty high stakes at some point. So that's why we can't stress enough having your senior, helping your senior get in the habit of regularly checking their inbox, clearing it out, unsubscribing from things if need be, but really getting that into a good workflow there. At the bottom here, the UC and CSU applications, habitually they crash on the day it's due. So spare your Thanksgiving break, help your seniors submit early. That way they don't have to deal with the stress of technical problems at the wire there. And then how can you all support, right? You're here tonight. That's one thing you already did. So thank you for coming and listening to what we have to say. We'll go through here a little bit of how you can help at home. We're here to help on the school side, and then you're with them in all the other hours. So together we'll get them through. So the student is in the driver's seat, right? This is their process. We want them to take ownership of it. We want them to reach out and ask us questions about their applications, because they're the one navigating this. But it's certainly okay. You're in the passenger seat with them. Help them stay on track here. We certainly have found success with parents and students in having a weekly college date. That way, the whole life doesn't turn into talking about college. It gets confined to maybe, all right, for an hour or so on Saturday mornings, let's check in, see what needs to happen, and talk some things through. So kind of keeping it confined so it doesn't become this all-consuming stressor. In terms of proofreading, checking for typos and grammar, awesome. If you have the bandwidth to do that, that's fabulous. But we do really want it to be in the student's voice. It is their application, their experience, and admissions officers are pretty good about telling when a 40-plus-year-old person wrote an application essay versus a 17-year-old. So keeping yourself out of it and keeping their voice front and center there.
And I just to jump in here, I think it's also important to consider that also we do know that a percentage of our students utilize a private counselor for this reason. And again, college admissions officers are very savvy and can definitely detect when they notice that adult involvement. So if you are working with those individual counselors, just make sure that, it's in the words of the student.
Yeah, that's a great point, Miss Cheryl. We're all adults here. Okay. Um, we did talk a little bit earlier about the guardian questions on School Links. So if you're able to chime in and help us with that, that's amazing. We love hearing you brag on your kids. And then, of course, helping with the financial aid aspect of it, getting that FAFSA and CATA completed. That's something that a student wouldn't be able to do independently without your help. These last things are a little more philosophical, but really respecting your students' privacy during this time, in terms of not sharing all their inner workings, right? This is a mixed emotions for many students. It's a hard time to navigate as high school is coming to a close, and things I think feel a little more high pressure than we would like them to, right? We know that what happens with this college application season isn't indicative of anything about them, but sometimes students can take decisions about admissions really personally. So respecting their privacy on that. And then really, I think the main goal is providing stress relief and reassurance. Wherever a student ends up, they still have paths to success after that, regardless of what the next step is. There's so much research out there that says how selective a college is or what path a student started with isn't indicative of overall life success, happiness, or even wealth. So really trying to be that voice of reason and saying that wherever you end up, we'll make the best of it from there. Okay. We are so excited. We love working with your students every day. You have a group of people here that genuinely love teenagers, so thank you for sharing yours with us. I think we might have a few questions in the Q&A. We got some questions about the School Links access, so I did link the onboarding guide that was sent out at the beginning of the year, so that is there again if you need that as well.
Yes, I think everything looks really good. Although, Becky, are there any questions that should be answered live that maybe we may have overlooked?
You guys really answered pretty much everything, just like Kelly was saying. She reposted the login instructions for the guardian login instructions for School Links, because a lot of people, once they were trying to get in, were realizing they weren't sure how to do that. So maybe just touch on that one more time, because that was kind of the most common question.
Yeah.
Here.
So you'll want to go to apps.schoollinks.com, and from there you will log in with whichever email you have on file in Infinite Campus. And if that's a Gmail account, you'll just hit sign in with Gmail. If that's not a Gmail account, you'll have to hit forgot your password and then go to that email to do the whole reset password thing.
Okay. Awesome. And I think, just kind of to put it out there, we are available to meet with our students and answer any sort of questions. I think that this is definitely the season where we see our seniors coming in and out of our offices on a daily basis because they have a lot of questions and a lot of things going on. We do have our drop-in times, drop-in hours before school, after school, during brunch or lunch, but they can always also email us if they have any questions. And like I said, we'll be setting up individual meetings with those students who we are going to be writing a letter of recommendation for. But we're also going to have a lot of different upcoming workshops during student support for students to be able to attend, whether that be, like Kelly had mentioned, UCs, CSUs, PIQs, your personal insight questions on the UC, those types of things. We are going to be having a lot of those. So again, a great way to be able to be aware of those is to check that email regularly and manage that inbox. I think that we're trying to teach all of our high school students, freshman through senior, to get into a habit of that. And we just don't want them to miss out on any important information and any upcoming events. There's lots of different deadlines in the senior year, and we just don't want them to miss out. So we are always available, and we're happy to help.
One other quick thing, Kelly, where do they find the Guardian survey in School Links?
That is in your student, when they're doing the brag sheet, the last couple questions in the student brag sheet are the Guardian questions.
Thank you.
So just apps.schoollinks.com, a parent is saying that that isn't working.
I
But
will
I
try to.
think
I will put it in the chat or the Q&A.
There's no S, it's app.
Oh, sorry. I was making it plural.
Correct. There's no S in app.
My apologies.
Oh, and then someone's asking about on the scattergram, there's a weighted GPA and then it just says GPA, but both are over 4.0.
Huh.
I think
Thanks
we
for
might
letting
need
us know.
to, yeah, we might
Oh.
need to dig into that a little.
Yeah,
But-
I think that's because things were messed up in Naviance. We'll get that fixed.
This is reminding me of the Naviance problem, which I'm going to blame Naviance for this.
It was, yeah. All right.
There's
Well, thank you,
one more
everybody.
question here. I'm so sorry. Which transcript gets sent to colleges? The online transcript shows 7th and 8th grade. So, you know, if they are showing 7th and 8th grade, they typically will be showing any sort of A to G requirements that are on there that we want colleges to be aware that they've taken it already. So we do know that a lot of students may take that first level of their world language in middle school, and they may take that, you know, algebra 1 or geometry maybe in middle school. And so we do put those on there. Just for colleges to be able to see that the student did complete it. However, we send what's on their Cal High transcript. Their official California high school transcript is what we send out.
Yeah,
All
I'm so
right.
glad you're excited about the School Links accounts. Naviance, we didn't have Guardian accounts, so moving forward, we're very excited that you all have this feature.
Yes.
And yes, this video and slides will be available to all of you who came in late. And we'll be posting it on our Cal High YouTube account.
Yes. I believe the GPA, Kelly, that is listed on the scattergrams, is it their A to G GPA for the UCs and CSUs, or do we use typically the overall weighted?
I think just across the board, it uses the weighted.
Got it.
I don't think that it is able to
Just to
distinguish between
specify
that.
for typical colleges. I know that there's a lot of different GPAs on their official transcript, but the ones that is on the scattergram is typically their weighted GPA.
Yeah, but the GPAs, if you go to UC, like their website, the GPAs they're posting are A through G. So if you want to compare your student to that GPA range, you could get an idea that way too.
All right. Awesome. I think that we have taken enough of your guys' time. Thank you so much for spending the evening with us. We know that was a lot of information to cover. Like I said, we are here to help your students, so please make sure they come and see us if they have any questions. All right, we're going to go ahead and end this event, and the presentation should be linked maybe hopefully by the end of the week, I would guess, which is tomorrow, maybe.
Tomorrow or Monday.
Tomorrow or Monday, we will definitely get
Monday.
it set up and upload it on there. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a good night.